Hey guys, how's it going? Nice to meet y'all. Thank you.
Hey
Perfect.
Bray, nice to meet you
So
too.
let's move on. So traditionally, when on certain websites we were able to look at the traffic, like for cap insight. For years, there was no specific metrics on the correct reports. So I'm just going to leverage the information you provided. So you said, Brian, that most of your traffic today comes from desktop, not mobile web. Am I correct in my understanding?
Yeah, it is. I do have it on mobile. Like you can do the search on mobile, but I think it's better on desktop.
Okay, all right. But in
Yeah.
terms of traffic, I understood that you said that most of your audience today comes on desktop, not mobile, right?
Correct. Yeah.
All right, cool. So let's in that case have a look first on mobile, on desktop, sorry, and then we could potentially look on mobile as well. So here I am. I'm on your website, brandhote.com. And so search is available primarily on the blog, correct? Not necessarily on the other pages, not on the home, but just on the blog. Am I correct?
Yeah, I was looking at putting it across the site. This was kind of like my first stab at getting it kind of in at least a page. But I do think that it would benefit from having search maybe as like a second nav bar. Um
Exactly. Yeah.
or
So I
something like
think
that. I'm
your
curious to hear your
question
thoughts though on
is
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why. So I totally agree with your intuition here. Uh, as we can experience on our website, search is traditionally across website a feature available across the entire website. So I understand that as of today, it's not scoped on blog, but indeed one area of improvement on your end, regardless of the type of content, would be to actually expose the search functionality across the entire website. And the best way to do it is to make it available as other navigation items in the search, in the header, right? So what you probably want to consider is like you could two options. You can either go with a small search magnifying glass, but it's going to be as good as the size it takes, and users, despite the fact it might be located on the top right, maybe not necessarily seeing it. So another option, once you have a search you're happy with, is to actually show a search box, maybe 200, 300 pixel wide, which really kind of stand out in your header and really invite users to engage with it, right? So that's what we would recommend and our customer traditionally do. So really make search predominant on your header. So that would be the first recommendation. Once you've done that, so as of today, search is available here, right? So ultimately, we said that the idea would be to move it here. The second recommendation would be to, once you've done that, I guess expectations from users would probably be to be able to access any type of content on your website, right? Both information about you, resources, tools, and so on. Is this content already indexed on your Algolia search as of today, or is it just tailored toward blog as of today?
Yeah, right now it was just tailored towards blog. I was
Okay.
looking at making separate indexes and then maybe it searches based upon like the page you're on.
Yeah.
I wasn't, sure about that. I just wasn't sure if it would get too clustered because they're sort of different data structures. Like blogs would be super different from
Yeah.
the other components. Yeah.
Sounds good. Makes sense. So in your case, so you have indeed two approaches, maybe without getting too technical, but when using Algolia, you can create multiple indices, which is a place where you store your data in order to make it searchable. And so you have the two approaches which are valid. Either you go with one index per type of content. This is usually preferred by large websites, but the other approach is also to bake everything into a single index, which could make even more sense here, as you would probably really provide a unified search experience, right? All content at the same time. The only challenge here for you would be to actually be able to rank from a business standpoint different type of content the same way, right? You could compare number of page views across all type of content that might be consistent, but you cannot compare page views and page view and video views, right? Or number of likes, or the comparison metric has to be consistent.
Right.
So you can go either way, but we definitely would definitely recommend you to index all the content available because users can expect that, and you can either do it yourself or you using the Algolia crawler that we really recently opened even more than before. So I would encourage having a look at the Algolia crawler to make it even easier to index. Let's have a look to search. So that's an interesting UI. Today, when I click on search, it pops up, it just slides up from the bottom. So the first thing I notice is text seems to be smaller than on the rest of the website, or actually not here. So first, maybe accessibility advice. You probably want to always display font size at minimum of 14 pixels, right? And also here for legibility, better legibility, you probably also want to consider increasing a bit the line height. That would just like improve the overall legibility. So the same recommendation would apply to search. So as of today here, we have a placeholder. Once you get to index multiple type of content, one good practice is actually to tell users what they can search for, right? You could say search for blog posts, resources, tools. And so this way, users are very informed about what they can search for. Also, you probably want to make the placeholder even a bit darker in terms of contrast, or maybe use a font which is less thin. Right now, it's very elegant, but not necessarily as legible as you could do. Um, so once you have it on the top, on the header, maybe also you want to consider um, not having it slide from the bottom, but really kind of display underneath the header, right? So this way it's kind of mimic a bit the autocomplete experience. Once you've done that, I think a good practice as well, and this is something we touched on the previous review, is always to start giving some meat to the users in the first place. So two things. The idea is to enrich what we call the empty query state. So empty query state is basically that state where I said I want to search, I focused on the search feature, but I haven't started typing yet. That's what we call the empty query state. And so here there's two things that you could do, actually three. First one is you could provide suggested searches. You can suggest people what they could search for. So not only it helps users like on their cold start, but also it inspires them ultimately on what they could search for, and just they can start browsing and just like figuring out what you offer. The second thing is traditionally a good practice on a website, more especially on e-commerce or large media website, is to provide recent searches. Here, maybe because it's your personal blog, maybe there's less of a need of recent searches, but it's still a convenient way for people to resume a search. Maybe they've searched for something, they looked at the page, they want to get back to the search results, they lost their way on the navigation. Getting access to the recent search actually enable them to resume quickly on the previous search. And something you probably want to consider as well is just like leverage the space to promote stuff that you think are important to your users, right? So maybe it's like providing access to latest videos or latest blog posts you made, right? Or featured blog posts. Maybe you did some and you want to promote them even further, or you want to provide like extra visibility to some cool projects you've done recently. Is this something you've ever considered to actually enriches that empty state in regards to search?
I did. I actually was looking at the recommended searches or like there's like that Algolia feature for I think it's called recommended, right? It sort of will like look at what people have searched recently and then pull back those recent items.
Yeah, so we have two products, Algolia Search, and we have another product called Algolia Recommend. That's might be
Recommend,
the
that's
one
the
you're
one that I was thinking
referring
of.
to.
Yeah.
It's less about search. It's more about, like on e-commerce websites such as Amazon, you have related products or um, frequently bought together. That's more what Algolia Recommend is about. It works for content as well. You could potentially use it for at the bottom of your blog post to promote related articles, but it's less related to search suggestion. We that said, we have a feature called query suggestions, which actually does what you said. Like basically, it looks at the analytics of what people have searched, and then it provides query suggestions, which you don't have at the moment, right? So if I search for AWS to reinvent, I don't get suggestion. I get write the content. So that was one of my suggestions here. What I wanted to share with you is I think it would be really beneficial if you could provide query suggestions. So both showing what people have searched recently and something which I think would be really powerful in your case for the blog post is to actually index in Algolia and make available into each record of the blog post is some kind of topics slash hashtags. I can see here you already started, right? AWS, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And so this way, people are provided with topics they can search for and see all related content. So that would be my recommendation. And you can either do, and you can even use, as you can imagine, the power of AI those days, like just providing the page. Let's say I go on Perplexity and I say, give me the main topics I can use as hashtags. And just publishing a blog, the blog post, you would just like add all those keywords potentially to your record of Algolia and use those as suggestions. So then people may be typing LL, they would get presented LLM2, LLM, and then each of the right blog posts would just show up, right?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I should use Perplexity. I saw that on LinkedIn. It's a great
I mean, I
LLM.
use
Yeah.
Perplexity, but I could have used ChatGPT as like just like the one that was more convenient. But I think the main idea is like how can you enrich your non-structured content with structured attributes. And the best way is to use here some kind of hashtags or topics. Because once you have those, it makes it very convenient for users to search not for blog post, a specific one, but search for topics. And it does happen that you just actually cover through multiple blog posts the same topics. So this way you really provide a good navigation path to users. And once you have that, and I will wrap this. I will wrap my recommendation with this. Actually, let me see where we stand. Actually, we have yeah. The idea would be for you to provide some kind of like on more like on a traditional media website like newspaper. You probably would want to have and probably using instant search. You could consider using our library instant search, which is available in Vanilla.js, React, in Vue, for instance. But you could imagine adding a sidebar where you could show some kind of all the most popular topics. And so people could filter against those topics, right? So maybe I search for AWS and then I can actually refine and I select the topic LLM. And so it's not just about keyword search, it's also about faceted search based on filters. But for this, you would need to enrich your record with those different tags slash topics. Do you see what I mean?
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Those are all really, I'm taking a lot of notes. That's really great suggestions. Thanks.
Cool, perfect. Great. And so, and then maybe last one is once you have that as well, you probably want to provide filters about the publication year or months. Or at very, yeah, maybe like content that has been published like the past 12 months, this year, last year, and so on, so people can further refine. At very least, you want to sort results based on textual relevance, and you probably want to sort them by freshness as well. Because as
Is
of
that
now, I
something
search for
just
AWS. Yeah.
just on that? Yeah, because that was something that I did not know how to do. I'm able to change the because that's like super old compared to the second one. Like the first one's way
Yeah.
outdated compared to the first one. So is that something that I fit into the search query to Algolia, or is that something where I need to
No,
make Algolia know the dates?
yeah. So you would need to add this information in the record. That would need to be a timestamp. Basically, you can sort against numerical values. And so you would convert maybe the publication date as a timestamp. So that would be one extra attribute in your Algolia record. And then in your index settings, you have something called custom ranking, and you would actually define the publication date in descending as a custom ranking. This way, all the results would be sorted by textual relevance. And for all records that are matching the same keyword, then it would be sorted descending on the date. And you could use the date, but you could also use the number of views or other things. But the date, I think, in your case, is probably what is most relevant.
Okay, perfect. I'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So, in a nutshell, sorry, time flies. It's already time to wrap up. Um, what I can say is my recommendation would be make search accessible in the header. Consider using a predominant search box with an explicit placeholder. Provide query suggestions based on topics, right? You can generate AI tools. It has never been as easy as it is those days. Optimize the default sorting, as we just touched on, opportunity to sort blog posts by descending date by default. And you can even imagine adding a featured flag, right? Maybe on your CMS, I don't know what you use, maybe you use WordPress. You may be able to add just a checkbox like featured. And in your custom ranking, you could have an extra attribute called featured true and false, and you could decide to have those always at the top of the results. That's something you could do. Because maybe there's some blog posts are going to drive more attention than others on specific topics, such as AWS. And last, you want to provide filtering and sorting capabilities. So people are able to sort by date, the oldest, the freshest, but also they're able to narrow down by type or topics. Type being like type of pages. Assuming that you index more than blog post, you can probably provide a type if you put everything in one index, which is like resources, tools, projects, blog. And this way people can really narrow things down. That would be a recommendation from me today. Thanks very much, Brian, for joining us today. I hope those recommendations are helpful, and don't hesitate to reach out once you made a iteration on your website. We're always keen on seeing how things evolve over time. So yeah, thanks very
Definitely.
much.
All the feedback is really helpful. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today.
Cool,
Thanks,
great. Thanks,
Brian.
Brian. Have a good one.
Okay, talk soon.
Good
Thanks
luck.
again.